Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Malaysia is running out of space to bury its waste. With landfills overflowing and recycling rates still low, the government is turning to WasteToEnergy or WTE technology as a possible fix. Now, at its core, WTE is a modern form of incineration. It burns waste at high temperatures but recovers the energy to generate electricity or heat. Now, not all waste incineration does that, so that's to bear that in mind. But the question we want to ask today is, can burning trash ever be clean or green? Let's ask the waste management expert on the show today, Professor Datuk Dr. Agamuthu Pariatamby, who is a senior professor with the Jeffrey Sachs Center on Sustainable Development at Sunway University. He has more than 5 decades of experience in waste management. Prof. Aga, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. What are your thoughts on waste incineration and other burn technologies? Maybe you can lay that out first as we start our conversation.
Okay, it's glad you asked me this because it's definitely a hot topic because the government's policy for more than 2-3 years ago, it was like no waste to energy. Now the real change in the policy directions. And as far as I'm concerned, we need it. We need the waste to energy because, like you mentioned earlier, we are running short of space, and we are also all the existing 90% of the waste landfills are dump sites. They are not really sent to landfill. So they actually cause a lot of damage to the environment in terms of landfill leachate and in the landfill gas and so on. That's another reason that I would prefer, because waste to energy is a controlled environment. You know, everything is controlled. When waste comes in, it is absorbed with a negative pressure. No pollution goes out, no air odor goes out. And then the waste is kept in a pit, and then it's burnt in the temperature of 850 to 1,000 degrees centigrade. And that ensures that combustion is complete. And that is the reason I think that we really should move in this direction, and we should move fast compared to our neighbors. Of course, our neighbors have already gone beyond. Like Singapore is burning almost all their waste and they're producing electricity.
Okay. So, Prof. Aga, you talked about how WTE technology essentially will contain some of these, the output of burning of waste incineration. Dioxins, fly ash, air pollution, all of those cited as risks often in these types of conversations, in the debate about waste incineration. Talk to me about those risks. Can those risks be mitigated? Can they be managed, contained, regulated? What do you think?
I would say yes, very strongly yes. The people who are opposing are the people who may not know exactly the advancements in the flue gas treating system. I mean, the main outputs from waste to energy plant is the bottom ash, fly ash, and flue gas. Now, I think most countries are now using the bottom ash and fly ash for various purposes. Like, for example, the mesh is used for making road. The fly ash sometimes can be used for as a mixture together with concrete and so on. But the question is flue gas, the gas that's coming out. Is the question. They say that it contains all kinds of pollutants, which I will not agree 100%, because we have got all the latest gas cleaning systems in place in the last 10 years. We did not have a catalytic converter, for example. Then we have fiber filter. We have a pH neutralization system. So we are ready to actually mitigate the flue gas. And as I always say, that the flue gas is cleaner than the air in Kuala Lumpur.
Prof. Aga, you say we're ready. Are we ready in terms of technology, or are you talking about ready in terms of the regulatory framework and the institutional capacity that's needed to monitor WTE operations, to ensure that it's safe, that it's transparent and effective?
I would say both, because technology is very advanced and we are importing technology. So most of the waste energy plants that we are establishing is a collaborative effort between the technology provider and the finance provider in Malaysia. So technology is not a question, but the government puts a condition, like, for example, you must have used the technology for like 10 years. So we are not taking from some new players. But in terms of institutional capacity and so on, we are in a way ready because in the first place, every waste to energy plant needs a EIA study, which is a detailed study of the risks and challenges of the waste to energy plant in a particular location. And one EIA may not be used for another place. So that is one thing. And we actually, the only thing that I would like to emphasize here is that the government should ensure proper enforcement.
Right.
And because, yeah.
Proper enforcement meaning? What do you mean by enforcement?
In terms of monitoring the flue gas, because you see that all the new waste energy plants must display the quality of the flue gas for the public. It is going to be a compulsory. So it will be displayed. When you are driving in a car next to a waste energy plant, you will be able to see the quality of the flue gas. So you can see whether it meets the standard, and the standard will be also displayed together. And the enforcement is actually safe, and it is running according to the EIA report as well as the technology conditions.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about the criticism towards waste to energy operation or technology. So critics say that WTE actually discourages recycling, it discourages composting, it discourages financing into other sustainable, other methods of waste management. How would you respond to these concerns, especially when waste incineration really requires the sorting of waste, the separation of toxic waste and plastics and the like?
Yeah, but you see, I would not agree totally because in most of the countries, including our neighbor Singapore, their recycling rate is about 60%. That is almost double the recycling rate of Malaysia. But the remaining waste all goes to the incineration plant or waste to energy plants. So you can't say that this is going to cut down on the recycling. If we have a proper policy in place, we can have the recycling, and what is not recyclable and what is reusable and so on will actually end up in the waste to energy plant. And we also have a large chunk of mixed waste. You know, we have like soft drink cartons, which has got one layer of paper and one layer of plastic. Now, those things all definitely has to go to waste to energy plant. So the mixed waste all will end up in waste to energy. It's very difficult to recycle such things.
Okay. Not all waste incineration plants are waste to energy. So the current discourse around waste incineration, is that based on plants and technology that was maybe several decades old? And are the current plants that are in operation in Malaysia, are we moving towards better, more high-tech operations?
Yes. I mean, if you are referring to the 5 small incineration plants on the island, the 4 island and Cameron Highlands, they are not waste to energy plants. They are incineration plants. And their capacity is very small, 30 tons, 40 tons a day. Incineration means is huge, like 1,000 tons a day, 2,000 tons. Now, China is building 7,000 tons a day. That kind of capacity will produce a lot of energy. But the ones on the Malaysian islands, Langkawi and Tioman and so on, and also the one in Cameron Island, they are not meant for waste to energy. So they are only incineration. And you don't expect energy from, because the capacity is very, very small. And I don't know, maybe it's not something that is really desired at that time. Maybe they thought it's a good idea, but not a good idea now. Yeah.
The big question when it comes to waste to energy plants is where to build them. Almost everyone says, well, not in my backyard, but sees the need for it. How do you respond to that? How do people, I mean, I'm sure WTE plants require the buy-in of the community it's going to be situated at. What do you make of the concerns that there could be placed closer to marginalized communities or communities that are that maybe don't have so much of a voice to push back against these plants? What are your thoughts on where these plants ought to be built?
Okay, number one, the EIA study actually stipulates the place. I mean, you cannot have a waste to energy plant anywhere and not near any living accommodations or houses and so on. That's one thing. Second thing is, it must be in a place where it doesn't have any adverse effects on the community nearby. And that is why. But of course, you can. I'm personally aware of one or two plants where there is objections for various reasons. But Malaysia is lucky because the bulk of the waste energy plant we don't have objections because they are sitting next to the current landfill. Like if you take the Jeram landfill, there are two waste energy plant coming up there. There is no objection because it's away from the Kapar town. I don't see why there should be any objections because it is exactly where the landfill is. And I keep telling that you don't see the damage caused by landfill because it's all underneath, but you just see the flue gas and you blame waste energy plant.
Okay, you mentioned a couple of times that that Singapore, our neighbor, uses WTE technology. I'm sure other countries, I think Japan and Sweden also incinerate their waste with high environmental standards. What makes them work under those conditions? What makes those societies accept WTE technology? Are there lessons to be learned from other countries?
Okay. I can tell you, when I talk to my Japanese friends, they said when they started 40 years ago, they were in a similar boat like Malaysia. But they educate the people. They educate the people not only just to accept the waste energy plant, but also how to do the separation of the waste. But now it has become a culture in Japan for the people to separate the waste, clean the waste, avoid contamination. Like, for example, when a housewife throws a plastic in Japan, she will wash it and drip dry it and throw it the next day. So the plastic goes for thermal treatment like pyrolysis to produce diesel, and you get high quality diesel. But in Malaysian plastic, you do that and see what happens. You won't even get 50%. That is the thing. It is actually, it comes with the training of the people, educating the people from zero. And we will definitely succeed like the Japanese, but we don't have to wait 40 years, maybe 4 years.
Okay, well, that's encouraging. Prof. Aga, thank you so much for speaking to me on the show. That was Professor Datuk Dr. Agamuthu Pariatamby from the Jeffrey Sachs Center on Sustainable Development at Sunway University. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our discussion about waste incineration, which has long been controversial. But is the solution to Malaysia's overflowing landfills WasteToEnergy technology, or WTE, which claims to be its cleaner cousin, high-tech plants that burn rubbish while generating electricity? Well, let's ask Mageswari Sangaralingam, who is the Chief Executive of the Consumers Association of Penang, and its the Honorary Secretary of Sahabat Alam Malaysia. Mages, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You have been quite vocal in your opposition to incinerators before, as well as WTE plants. Can I just get you, at the start of our conversation, to maybe lay out some of the core reasons why you think these technologies are harmful or misguided for Malaysia? What are your thoughts on waste incineration and other burn technologies?
Yeah, okay. So we in Sahabat Alam Malaysia and also the Consumers Association of Penang, we have been long campaigning against waste incineration and also other burn technologies. Yeah, by incinerating, we are actually burning away valuable resources that can otherwise be composted or recycled. So incinerators, sometimes they use the term thermal treatment facilities. They involve various processes such as combustion or pyrolysis, plasma arc, gasification. Yeah, they use all this jargon, but it is essentially burning. And of course, the proponents will claim that it will make our waste problems disappear. Yeah. However, burning or incineration does not miraculously make your waste disappear. There will be byproducts from the burning process. So the process of incineration transforms the waste that is fed into it into other forms of waste, such as ash that is actually toxic, air emissions that are hazardous, and it also contributes to water pollution. Yeah? And incinerators, they're known to produce toxic emissions, including dioxins, furans, which are carcinogenic, mercury, other heavy metals, particulate matters, it's like small fine particulate matters, which of all these toxic emissions can cause cancer and other health problems. So the greenhouse gases emitted from the incinerators, they also contribute to climate change. So when communities started protesting incinerator projects, even in Malaysia, the technology proponents started introducing waste-to-energy facilities. Yeah. So right now, WTE, or these waste-to-energy facilities, are being aggressively promoted in Malaysia and also other countries in the region. And they promise that they can produce energy during the incineration process. However, mixed waste, like in our region, is highly inefficient fuel. Yeah, due to the low calorific value of the waste, incinerators are only able to generate small amounts of energy while destroying large amounts of valuable materials. Yeah, so we are members of Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives. So detailed analysis by Gaia, it shows that incinerators waste more energy than they produce. This is also primarily because what is incinerated or burnt, it has to be replaced by new products. So in summary, incinerators are massive waste of energy.
Okay. I want to ask you to respond to some of the claims that proponents of WTE technology have laid out. They say that, well, these are new generation incinerators. This is high technology, new technology, and that all the byproducts that you talked about, the dioxins, the fly ash, the flue gas, all of that can be managed and mitigated through this new cleaner technology, and it can be regulated. Emissions can be regulated through thorough monitoring and enforcement. How would you respond to all of those claims that actually, so they're claiming that your objection is based on technology from 2 or 3 or 4, even 4 decades ago, that today's technology is better and safer and cleaner. How would you respond?
Yeah, of course, they want to sell their technology, right? So they claim that these newer waste incinerator technologies, they claim to be cleaner with less environmental impact. But one thing for sure, even the most advanced incinerators, they will still release volumes of pollutants, that will contaminate our oil, our soil, our air, our water. Yeah. So many of these pollutants also enter our food supply and concentrate up through the food chain. So as they were mentioning about the new waste incinerators, a public health impact report of modern incinerators in the European Union, they found that it is a major source of ultra-fine particulate emissions. Just now I've already explained to you in terms of the particulate matters, it will also cause health impacts. So besides the air emissions, the pollutants that are produced are also in the form of ash. Yeah, so these pollutants, they are captured by air filtering devices in the incinerator. It is transferred to byproducts such as fly ash, bottom ash, boiler ash, there's slag, wastewater treatment, sludge. This is all released into the environment. So it's just not emissions, it is also all the other byproducts. So I was just reading the environmental impact assessment report of a new WTE plants, actually a few WTE plants, which will be built in Rawang. And what they have planned is this fly ash and bottom ash, they're going to send to cement plants to be burned. So you see, so besides the waste emissions, the emissions from the incinerators, it is also going into cement plants, and there will be also more emissions. Yeah. So all this, also another issue is this upgraded, supposedly new generation waste to energy facilities. They actually require regular service to maintain the emission levels. So this will increase the cost of maintenance. So these are some of the issues that we have to look into.
Okay, but if we don't burn our waste, we still have the issue of our landfills overflowing up to, reaching capacity. If we don't incinerate or we don't adopt WTE technology, then how do we sustainably manage our growing waste crisis here in Malaysia?
Yeah, so this is the problem, yeah, because all these waste management policies and programs or whatever they have come up with, they are all oriented around the assumption that waste is inevitable. So we need to move away from this thinking and approach. Yeah, so reduction in waste generation should be a priority. So there is need to redirect the millions of dollars that they are planning to spend on to install incineration systems into more effective, like in terms of waste prevention, reduction, and zero waste systems. So these zero waste systems actually can maximize both return on investment and also economic development opportunities. Another thing in Malaysia is key is composting. Yeah, composting is key to achieving 50% of or higher diversion levels. You know, in Malaysia, almost 50% of our waste is actually wet waste and organic waste, which can be composted. So the Malaysian government actually now needs to include separation of organic or wet waste in the mandatory waste segregation law. For time being, this is, all our food waste and organic waste are put in as general waste, and only recyclables are being separated, right? So, so if we keep the organics and biodegradables out of the waste collected by the municipalities, our waste management companies, we will reduce the volume of waste to be disposed and managed. Yeah. But then again, for this to occur, there has to be efficient implementation of the waste separation law with good collection system and proper infrastructure in place. Yeah. Enforcement measures are also important to ensure that the waste generator complies with the law.
Right. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you very quickly, Mages, and I wanted to ask you, I really like that you said we shouldn't assume that waste is inevitable, and that's a really powerful statement. But when we look at incineration, waste incineration and burn technologies, we often look abroad and we look at other countries that have adopted this and think, oh, wow, look at how they're managing their waste. How do you think we should move forward? Do you think we should be adopting what other countries have adopted many years ago in terms of burn technologies, or invest that in reducing, reusing, and recycling, the 3 Rs? Does one pay off more than the other? I'm just wondering, because capital or investment in this is finite. How do you see it? Where we should be putting our money as a country?
So we should learn from the mistakes. You know, there are already a lot of reports and also scientific reports and also evidence that these waste incinerators are actually causing harm to the public health, especially the ones in the surrounding areas. So there is also other scientific evidence that zero waste is possible. It not only addresses the environmental and public health concerns that incinerators have, but it also creates more livelihood opportunities. So Malaysia should, we have been proposing this to the Malaysian government for decades. Yeah, if they had already taken some steps, advocated for zero waste, then we would have not come to this situation. Yeah, so the goal is to reduce waste generation, and if you reduce the waste generation, there's also less waste to be disposed. So what we are also saying is, like, consumers, we should be mindful of what we consume. Yeah, and also other countries are now already moving into coming up with reuse systems. Yeah, so this reuse system should be promoted rather than we going on with our throwaway culture, using disposals, for example, the single-use plastics, the single-use plastic bags, and a lot of the items. Disposable diapers is another one, and also disposable sanitary pads. So there are a lot of single-use items that we are using and that we dispose, and there are actually already alternatives. Yeah, whether from our traditional practices or also people are innovating and coming up with a lot of alternatives, which is safer. So and we are also advocating for producers to be accountable of the products that they are producing. So they need to take responsibility of their products and the packaging, as well as redesign and innovate better materials and systems. So if all these come together, then we would have an opportunity to actually reduce waste generation.
Mages, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I appreciate you providing your insights and your perspective. Thank you. That was Mageswari Sangaralingam from Consumers Association of Penang and Sahabat Alam Malaysia, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.